it's Jess. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. Today I am going to be doing the book taste tag thanks to Kitty who has tagged me in this. I will have Kitty's channel and the original creator link down below, but I thought that this would actually be a really good idea just to in general have on my channel. I know a lot of us like to watch book content about books that we have either read and enjoyed, hopefully, or content about books that we think we might like as a way to sort of gauge whether we should read these books. So this will let you know if you should take my recommendations as actual good recommendations. If your taste aligns with my taste, maybe you will like the books that I read. Also, if there are weird pauses or skips in this video, I'm sorry. I have somehow picked up an upper respiratory thing, and so there's gunk in my lungs, and I will be editing out all of the coughs that I do in this video. So I'm so sorry if it gets a little bit choppy, but here we go. It's time to learn about my taste. The first question is to describe your taste in one sentence, and mine is really boring. It's fantasy. If there is even the smallest, tiniest speculative element of a book, then I am willing to give it a try. I have found books within every single subgenre of fantasy that I also enjoy. So yeah, I know that that is super vague. Does not really provide any description, but yeah, fantasy. The second question is to describe your taste using categories, and for this one, I will elaborate a little bit further. I, again, read primarily fantasy. It makes up the vast bulk of what I read, but I also do really enjoy the horror genre, and I really enjoy thrillers, and sometimes I enjoy romance, but I found that 99% of the romance I enjoy is fantasy romance. There's really only been a couple of contemporary romances that I have liked. And I also particularly love when the horror and the thriller have some type of speculative twist. My favorite horror books, my favorite thriller books have something supernatural going on. Something fantastical is happening. So again, fantasy. I also primarily read adult books, and I do find that the older I get, the higher the percentage of adult becomes overall in my reading. And that's not to say that I don't occasionally read a young adult or a middle grade. There are a few middle grade series that I'm actually in the middle of at the moment, and again a few young adult series. But I do find that the older I get, when I pick up a young adult specifically, I just don't really connect as much anymore, especially with the coming of age stories. So I definitely find that I'm no longer enjoying young adult the way that I used to. That being said, so far for the year, even though it's not over with, this could change. There is actually a young adult book in my top 10 for the year at the moment. So honestly, I should have made a caveat, a disclaimer at the beginning of this video. I live in perpetual shades of gray. There is no black and white in my life. Are these hard and fast rules? Absolutely not. Do I have exceptions all the time? Of course I do. As far as back to my reading taste, I also tend to like slower paced books than I would say what is average paced. A lot of times when I read a book and I think it's paced perfectly, I will see other people review the book and they'll say, yeah, I liked it, but it was a little slow. And I'm like, ooh, no, actually, it was perfect. And then I also like weird things, If your book has a little weird twist in it, then I'm gonna be intrigued and I'm gonna want to pick up that book. The next part of the tag is to show off some books that are particular to my taste. I have chosen 4 books. The first being Anne of Green Gables. This is a book from my childhood. This is a book that I feel very deeply emotionally connected to. This is also a classic, so I'm not sure if I need to describe it, but basically in this story, it's a series that spans Anne's entire life, but you follow Anne and she is an orphan. At the beginning of the first book, Anne is adopted by this pair of siblings, a brother and a sister, who are running this farm. I mean, they own the farm, it's theirs, but they are getting a bit older and neither of them married, neither of them has kids, so they're looking for someone to help them on the farm. It really just is this beautiful story of family and love, and Anne is just lovely, wonderful, beautiful chaos embodied. I love her so much. She is constantly getting into trouble. It's hilarious when you read because like you can follow Anne's logical train of thought and you can be like, yeah, this is totally fine. And then like, of course, something goes wrong. Like, of course she ends up in trouble because of it. Anne is so endearing. And she also is just like 100% committed to romanticizing every single aspect of her life, and that is something that I also try to emulate in Anne. I love romanticizing my life, especially when my mental health is bad. Like, genuinely just romanticizing the daily mundane things that you do can make a huge difference for your mental health. Anne is also very special to me just because I identified so strongly with her as a child. She is coming as an outsider into a very set small community, and as a child I moved when I was in 2nd grade into like a brand new community. We moved states and I had quite a hard time making friends at the beginning of that. It was very difficult to figure out this new school and how the school worked, and there was just it was a time for me. And Anne is also like a massive, massive reader, which I was also. So yes, I love Anne with all of my heart. She is very, very special to me. If you know me, you also know that I love vampires, and the Blood Grace series took over my life last year. I became feral for this series. This is a fantasy romance series with vampires. The main male love interest is a vampire, even though they go by a different name. The first book, you're following the bastard daughter of this king. He is not a good guy. So you're following his daughter Cassia, and then you're also following this apprentice emissary Leo, who is the love interest. And basically, like, the king has invited down an envoy party of Hesperines in order to try to like make a peace treaty between the two countries. Yeah, you're just watching the two of them learn about each other, and they slowly start to trust each other, and then they become friends, and then they fall in love, and it's just really beautiful and sweet. And this is my favorite fantasy romance series. I love it that it has vampires. I love the magic in here, and like I have nothing bad to say about this series. I think it's so good, and I definitely think that you should read it. Next, for my taste, I wanted to highlight one of my favorite authors of all time, but also what is, in my opinion, a perfect horror book, and that is My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. Stephen Graham Jones is my favorite horror author. I know that this series is like a little bit hit or miss for people, and there are a lot of people that have criticisms about this series and this book, and I do want to say that like those criticisms are correct. However, they are also wrong, because this is a perfect horror novel. In this, you follow a girl who is a senior in high school, and she is a massive fan of horror, particularly slashers. It's a very stream of consciousness book. You spend a lot of time in Jade's head. It's very introspective, and basically Jade is convinced that a real life slasher is about to happen around her. Love this author, love this series, love this book. The last book that I want to show for my taste is also very, very special to me. I know that like when you're a reader, sometimes you come across a book that just feels like it was written personally for you. It just instantly becomes so close to your heart. It feels like the author literally wrote this book for me. Is that the case? No, but you know, in my delusional head, that's how it feels. And that book is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. I feel like I've already spent too much time talking about all of these books, but I will just say that the tagline for this is lesbian necromancers in space. And this first book in this series is kind of this weird melding of fantasy, a little bit of mystery, a little bit of sci-fi, and like also a little bit of horror. It's just really, really weird. It's really, really funny. The narrator is Gideon, and she is just so cheeky. I love Gideon. I want to hang out with her. I want to be her friend. This book series is also super weird. This is one of the weirdest series I've ever read. Next up, I'm supposed to name a book that should have been exactly my taste, but I ended up not enjoying. For that, unfortunately, I have Lady Macbeth by Ava Reed. This is a Macbeth retelling, which, check. Love Macbeth. It is a little bit gothic, a little bit atmospheric, check, check, things that I love. It is a little bit fantastical, check again. It's witchy, and it's feminist, check, check. Every single thing about this book should have been something that I loved, but I ended up giving this 2 stars, and the 2 stars were based purely off of Ava Reed's writing style. This book was a massive disappointment for me, and I just genuinely don't think it accomplished what it was trying to accomplish. I don't think it was successful. I did not like it, and I don't recommend it, and I'm very sad, and I did pay full price for this book. Next up is the opposite of that, which is a book that you shouldn't have liked, but you ended up liking anyways. And this one, I'm exposing myself, so like, be nice, be kind to me, please. I really like The Royals of Forsyth series. Starts with like The Lord of Pain. It is a dark contemporary romance, and I want to emphasize 2 things when I tell you that I like this series. First of all, I do not recommend it. If you want to read it, fine, I'm not going to stop you, but this is not me recommending that series. When I say dark, I mean dark. Please read the trigger warnings. There are some kinks that are explored in this that will make certain people upset. I'm not even gonna tell you what this series is about. Super dark, so unhinged. Absolutely, like 100% from page 1, unhinged the entire time. It is what it is, and I read all of the books that are available currently in this series, and I'm gonna read the next one in the series, so judge me all you want. I don't know what to tell you. Yep, okay, we're gonna move on now. Next, I'm supposed to show you some books that are on my TBR currently that I think should be exactly my taste. I have picked out 3 of them. The first is The God of Endings. This is a vampire story, but it is a more literary leaning one. Someone said, I forget who, but they said that this is like basically Mrs. Honeyside from Matilda, but like if she were a vampire. And I said, that's all I need to know. And then the book was also on clearance at Barnes & Noble, and I said, sign me up. I need that. First of all, I love vampire stories. One of the reasons that I love vampire stories is that there's just so much that you can do with it. I also like love tropes of immortality and like gods, which like not necessarily the gods part, but like immortality and vampires go hand in hand. But the reason that I specifically picked this is because something I have not talked about in this video is that I love soft stories. I love stories that are just like little glimpses into people's lives that are soft, and you just hang out with that person. And I think that this is really gonna hit that, but I also think it's gonna be like a little bit of an interesting twist because the main character is a vampire and immortal. Honestly, I like might need to just sit down and read this right now. The next book that I think will be exactly my taste is Thistlefoot, and I picked this one because first of all, it's a fantasy. In this, you're following 2 siblings who inherit a sentient house on chicken legs. I love familial relationships within my stories. Specifically, I really love sibling themes and sibling dynamics in stories. I also love sentient houses. I love a good haunted house story. I don't think this is going to be a haunted house story. I'm pretty sure it's not. But like, I really love sentient objects. And houses are one of my favorites to have sentient objects. I'm also thinking of like Foundry Side. Love the sentient objects that exist within that. And I think that this book is also going to contain quite a bit of whimsy. And honestly, you cannot put too much whimsy in a book for me personally. And I think whimsy is something that is not very common in adult fantasy, and that's one of the reasons that I bought this book, and I'm very excited to read it. And then the last book that I wanted to highlight for this portion of the tag is Asunder. This is a new release from this year. This is another adult fantasy book, and this one involves a girl that is bound to an eldritch being. Nice. Sign me up. Sounds absolutely fantastic. I love eldritch beings, eldritch horror, eldritch themes. Give me another existential crisis from reading. Like, please and thank you. I would love that. The next question is, who are some booktubers that have very similar taste to me? And first and foremost, I want to say Kitty from Kitty and the Books. She is who tagged me in this, and excluding romance, we have like nearly identical taste in books. If Kitty tells me that I am going to like a book, I automatically know that I'm going to like a book. If you like my taste, you will also like Kitty's taste. To be perfectly honest with you all, like, she does have better taste than I do. I do sometimes like to participate in the garbage, in the trash. I say that I have the personality of a goblin because I do, and I like that trash sometimes. But Kitty, absolutely immaculate taste in books. And then another booktuber that I have very similar taste to is another Jess. It is Jess Owens. We read a lot of the same fantasy, and we have a lot of the same opinions about fantasy. I will make sure to leave both of their channels linked down below. You should definitely give a go, especially if you have similar taste to me. You will probably enjoy their content. And then the last question is, have you always had this taste in books? And like, largely the answer is yes. The same things that I enjoyed in fantasy when I was a child are what I still enjoy in fantasy now. I love a quest story, I love a good chosen one, love me some fantastical animals. It's all a good time. I love it, love magic, all of the above. I would say the main difference now in my taste is that I also really enjoy the horror and thriller genre, and that is something that I only discovered probably like 4 years ago. I used to never let myself read thrillers or horror because I am someone who has very vivid dreams, and I do get nightmares. I basically dream about like whatever I do that day. So if I watch a TV show or play a video game, there's a really good chance that that is going to show up in my dream. So for years I was afraid that if I read a horror book that would show up in my dreams, and therefore I would have nightmares. But I did a little experimenting, and I found out that even if I'm sitting on the couch scared out of my mind, I actually won't have nightmares from horror books. And it's been really, really fun the last few years discovering what I like within the genre and trying new things. It's opened me up to a lot of new books and authors that I never would have given a chance to before. So I'm very, very thankful. That's also something that like BookTube has brought to my life that I'm very, very thankful for. It was actually Summerween that was the originator of me trying out horror books, and so yeah, I'm very, very thankful for that. And the last little bit, I'm supposed to tag some people. I would tag Kitty, except I never tag Kitty because I only do the tags that she tags me in. So I can't tag her, she's already done this. So since I mentioned, I don't think she will ever see this video, but I did mention that Jess Owens has very similar taste to me. In the odd chance that you ever see this video, consider yourself tagged, Jess. Have fun, or don't. And then I also wanted to tag Cheeky Chapters. Our taste is not like quite as aligned as Kitty and Jess are to me, but we do both really enjoy reading fantasy, and she also participates in the Magical Readathon, which is one of my favorite things to participate in every year. I love the Magical Readathon, so I tag you. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that it gave you a little bit of insight into what I like to read. If you have watched this video, first of all, thank you. Thank you for spending time with me. But if there is a book that you think that I would enjoy, if you think it matches up with some of the buzzwords or the themes that I have talked about today, let me know. I mean, you know, my TBR is like 170 books, so why not add more to it? Might as well. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. Please stay safe this week, stay warm this week, and I'll see you in another video soon. Goodbye!